Hey everyone. In this video, we're going to take a look at some general info as it relates to relations and functions. Okay, so we see a couple of definitions here. A relation is a relationship between two sets of information. A relation is very general. There's no specificity to how your two sets of information relate, whereas a function is a relation, okay, but it's a more specific relation where each of your values in your domain maps to one value in your range. Okay, and as you can see by this chart here, all functions are included as relations, okay, but all relations are not necessarily functions. Okay, you can see that it says that a better behaved relation is a good way to define it. It's a more specific relation, again, as it relates to functions. Okay, so one way to represent functions and relations is by mapping. By looking at these maps, we can tell whether each of our relations are functions. Okay, we have one-to-one functions and we have functions that are not one-to-one. Okay, one-to-one functions means that each of your values in your domain maps to exactly one value in your range. They all have predictable outcomes. Again, if I say A, I could say 1, B 2, C 3, and D 4. All predictable without any option going into your range. Okay, and it's all one-to-one there. Now, a function that is not one-to-one still has predictable outcomes. If I said A, I'd get 2, B, I'd get 1, C, I'd get 2, D, I'd get 3. See how there's no choice there as far as going from your domain to range. They all have a predictable outcome. Okay, but we notice here, okay, our A maps to two different, our A maps to the same value as our C in the range. So A goes to 2, and as well, C also goes to 2. So this one would not be one-to-one because you have two different domains mapping to the same value in your range. Okay, both are functions though. Now the way you can tell if it is not a function, meaning it's only a relation, looking at the second one here, if you notice the value A, if I was to ask what A's output was, A has two different outputs. It does not have a predictable output, okay? A goes to 1, it also goes to 3. That cannot happen in a function, okay? Each of your domain values has to have a predictable value in your range. If it has more than one, then it is not a function. Right, moving on. Okay, another representation of functions and relations are tables in ordered pairs. As far as this goes, the easiest way to tell whether it's a function or not is to look at your x values. If your x values repeat, it is not a function. If your x values do not repeat, it is a function. So looking at our x here, none of those values repeat, so this one is a function. Okay, now to tell if that is one-to-one, your y values are not allowed to repeat if it's one-to-one. So we see 15, 3, and 16. None of those repeat, so this would also be one-to-one. Okay, each of our x values maps to one distinct y value. Okay, moving on to B. Again, you notice 4, 12, 7, and 11. None of those repeat, so this is indeed a function as well. Okay, and none of our y values repeat, so this would also be one-to-one. Okay, how to tell if it's a relation? Well, if your x values repeat, then it is a relation, not a function. Here we can see our 14s repeat, so that is why this one is a relation. And here we can see that 18 repeats multiple times in your x, so this is also a relation and not a function. Okay, so here's just a couple of different representations of functions and relations and how to tell whether a relation is a function or not.